I would just like to thank Talia Hibbert for blessing us with sexy email banter. I didn't know foreheads could be erotic, but apparently they can. The hot take of the century. This book is making me emo and I need a nice coffee about it. I do love Gigi and Shivani. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liz, and this week I'm gonna find out if the Brown Sisters books by Talia Hibbert are really worth the hype. Recently I was approved to read an advanced copy of the third book in the Brown Sisters series, Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and around the same time the holds that I had placed on the first two books, Get a Life Chloe Brown and Take a Hint Dani Brown, came through to my local library. Rather serendipitously. Seriously, I could not have planned this better if I tried. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you probably know that I'm not the biggest romance reader in the world. I'm not the biggest romance reader on this platform. I'm pretty sure I'm not even the biggest romance reader in my house. And I'm the biggest reader in my house, full stop. So, I think that says something about my take on romance. But even I, stone-cold, heartless bitch that I am, have heard of the Brown Sisters and kind of wanted to hop on that hype train. Just like a really super quick overview, the Brown Sisters books are romantic comedies that follow, you guessed it, the Brown Sisters, Chloe, Dani, and Eve. At first glance, they kind of just look like any old rom-com to me, to be perfectly honest, but what sets these books apart is the level of inclusivity that Talia Hibbert has included in her writing. These books feature 3 plus-size main characters, 3 black main characters, other POC representation, mental health, depression and anxiety rep, queer rep, chronic pain rep. There's just a lot of inclusivity going on in these books that has really intrigued me and seems to have intrigued a lot of people. And to be quite honest, I have only heard rave reviews of these books so far. So on the one hand, I'm really excited. I'm excited for inclusivity. I'm excited to see good, positive, well-done representation of largely marginalized and underrepresented groups of people. But on the other hand, I know my usual take on romance. As we've established in previous videos, adult romance scares me, and I'm a little bit apprehensive because I don't want my expectations to be so high that they can't live up to it. But we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna read the books, and we're gonna find out if they're really worth all of that hype. Now, I have an inkling already that this vlog is probably gonna be pretty long, so I'm not gonna hold us up any further. Let's just dive on in. So I realized I never gave you guys a synopsis of the books. Like, I gave you a synopsis of the trilogy as a whole, but not of each individual book. And as I've just finished the prologue on Get a Life Chloe Brown, I figured now is probably a good time to do that. Basically, Chloe is the oldest of the Brown sisters. She deals with chronic pain. She has fibromyalgia, which, side note, this is own voices. I just recently learned that Talia Hibbert has fibromyalgia, so own voices, chronic pain rep, in addition to literally the zillions of other represented groups in these books. So Chloe has chronic pain, and because of that, she has allowed herself to become very reclusive as an adult. She's physically been unable to participate in a lot of things that she wants to do, but she has this near-death experience, and that sort of sets her on this path to living the life that she wants to live instead of letting herself be restricted by her chronic pain. Makes this list of all of the things that she wants to do, and she recruits Redford Morgan, who is the superintendent of her apartment complex, to help her in exchange for like free consultation, free work on this website that she is building for him so that he can sell his artwork because he's an artist by night. And it's them falling in love as they progress through this list. And it just sounds very cute and very sweet. I have just finished the prologue, so we haven't actually even read yet, but already, right off the bat, I'm loving the humor, I'm loving the voice, the writing style. Talia Hibbert has this really fantastic, knowing me, I am not going to be checking in regularly. I mean, I'm going to try to check in like regularly, but maybe not a lot regularly, if that makes sense. There are some folks out there who, when they're vlogging, they're really good about having cameras on hand so that as soon as they have a thought about the book they're reading, they can just film their reaction.
I am not that person.
I'm not good about that. So I'm going to be taking notes on note cards. I have my little index cards that I use as bookmarks that I can just write down my thoughts on. But then also in Notion on my phone, I'm going to be taking notes, and I'm just going to check in every like 25% or so as I progress through these books. I feel like that's gonna be the most solid way for me to express all of my reactions to you in this video. So I'm gonna get back into reading and I'll see you at 25%. Alright, it is time for your first true update on Get a Life, Chloe Brown. And may I just say, the banter is peak. I didn't realize that this was gonna be like an almost enemies to lovers / hate to love type situation. It is clear from the very beginning that Chloe and Red do not like each other. They're just like off-put by one another, very like immediately judgmental, and they just don't like each other, which is great for me because I love a good hate to love story. I love that when characters don't like each other from the beginning, they have to build up that mutual respect and support and friendship and really work through actually starting to like each other as people before they can fall in love with each other. Even when it's clear, as it is in this book, that they are very much physically attracted to one another, working through that emotional connection and build up just makes for like a chef's kiss slow burn, which I love. Like, who doesn't, right? But also the fact that they don't like each other for a while makes for very uninhibited banter. And it just means that they can be more fully themselves around each other because they don't care what the other one thinks of them. Also, another observation I want to point out, Chloe is a Capricorn. I will not hear any other arguments. That's a lie. I will hear arguments for Virgo. She could potentially be a Virgo. Beyond that, I will hear no arguments. Chloe is a Capricorn. And as a Capricorn sun with a Virgo moon, I do feel qualified. Do I know anything about astrology beyond my own chart? No, I fucking don't. But I feel qualified on this ruling. Chloe Brown is a Capricorn. The list making and the planning of fun, I am full on identifying with that aspect of who Chloe is as a person. I'm identifying with a lot of her, to be honest. But I'm really connecting with this whole list making thing. If nothing else, I'm predicting that this book is just going to reaffirm my belief that you can plan your life and have it go well. Shape your life into what you want it to look like, and that's what Chloe is doing. And this book is just validating that belief for me right now, so I'm living for that. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, I know I said I'd check in again at 50%, and this is not yet that point in the book, but I would just like to thank Talia Hibbert for blessing us with sexy email banter. That's all. Send tweet. Y'all, when they said that this book was steamy, that was an understatement. There was no joke that the premise of this book was intriguing, the setup was cute, the banter was hot, and the steam is unreal. It is out of this world. I didn't know foreheads could be erotic, but apparently they can. We've reached a point now where Chloe and Red have really started delving into her list and like really trying to figure out ways to complete the tasks on her list, complete those items. And they're spending a lot of time together, and in doing so, becoming really vulnerable with each other and opening up to each other a lot more. We're learning a bit more about Red's path, this art career that he gave up, mostly through Chloe's snooping, which is like, good on you, girl, take initiative, go be the FBI. But he's also opening up to her, which is really nice to see. And they're just like very gradually sharing their past traumas and not exactly helping each other through those traumas, because I think they've both, the vibe that I'm getting is that they've both kind of come through and are now on the other side of traumatic life events. But there's a difference between being on the other side of a bad experience and being able to talk about the bad experience. I feel like they're helping each other find a sense of vulnerability again that they've both just been shutting away for so long, because they feel like they have to be strong in whatever way that they can, and they don't necessarily have to be that way around each other. And it's really cute. And also the smut is hot. I am going to switch to audiobook for a little while. I'm probably not going to continue reading very long, but I have my basket of knitting here that I want to work on. And also my eyes are getting tired because it's late. So I'm going to switch over to audio for a little bit, and I probably will check in tomorrow when I hit 75%. Alright, final check-in on Chloe Brown before we get into the wrap-up portion at the end of the video. I know I said that I would update you guys every like 25% or so, but as we know from previous reading vlogs, when it comes to checking in and updating, I'm a massive liar, so clearly that didn't happen. I hit roughly 75% last night while I was listening to the audiobook after I switched over, and then I just picked up again this morning and kept going. I find that the further along I get towards the end of a book, the less I have to say about it, because most of my big observations happen when I'm getting to know the characters. So that first like 50 to 60% when we're meeting the characters and they are being developed and the relationships are being established, that's when I make my bigger observations. And then that last like 30% or so, it's more just like conflict and plot twists. And I'm not a plot reader, I'm a character reader, so I don't have a whole lot to say. I do think the conflict that has arisen at the end of the book is like maybe a little bit unnecessary, but I'm gonna be honest, any minor issues that arise within the relationship as like plot conflict, even if it seems unnecessary to me, I'm 100% willing to forgive it, because the steam in this book is out of this world. Oh my god, like I didn't think it was, I mean, I knew there was gonna be more of it from when I updated you last. I knew logically, this being a romance novel, that there was going to be more of that kind of content. I guess it didn't occur to me that it could get better, but then it did. And this is just the first book in the series. This is book 1. I got 2 more of these. I probably won't talk to you again before I start Dani Brown, so I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of that really quick before I dive in. So Dani is the second Brown sister. She, I believe, works at a university, and she's friends with the security guard in the building where she teaches. During some like fire drill, lockdown drill or something, she ends up getting carried out of the building by this security guard. Some videos get posted of this event and end up going viral, so they decide to fake date each other, which is a trope that I absolutely adore, almost as much as hate to love, or equally. You know what, I feel like they're equal. I feel like they're equal in my heart. We had hate to love with Chloe Brown, we have fake dating with Dani Brown, and I'm just so excited to dive in. So I probably will check in with you again when I hit 25% on Dani Brown. I am really loving Talia Hibbert's voice for these books. Her writing style is so conducive to romantic comedy. What I'm really loving is how she takes these big dramatic life events that these characters are having, and rather than dramatizing them further or sensationalizing them, she's kind of zooming out and taking like a very no-nonsense approach to like big dramatic happenings, like almost being hit by a car or getting trapped in an elevator. And it takes her writing to this point of being almost absurdist, but not crossing that line. And you pair that with this dry British humor and you just have peak rom-com. I've just finished chapter 5, which puts me at like just over 25%. Loving the voice, loving the banter, loving the friends to lovers fake dating setup. Something that I'm kind of taking issue with though is the character of Dani herself. She's very archetypal. She feels very flat at the moment. She's this witchy, career-driven, bisexual, and intellectual lady, which I love, but it's starting to feel like having a fuck buddy is her only personality trait, or wanting one. And at 25% into the novel, I feel like I should know more about her. And I get that she's like a very guarded, emotionally guarded person. Not super emotionally available, which is like same. But I don't know if this lack of a personality was done intentionally by Talia Hibbert to illustrate how guarded Dani really is, just as a coping mechanism to protect herself from getting hurt, or if she just doesn't have a personality. I really enjoyed her presence in Chloe Brown, and as a side character, I was totally fine with her being kind of a caricature, but as the main character, I do want her to have some more depth, so I'm hoping to see some of that moving forward. I'm loving Zaf. I'm loving how much he swoons over Dani, like, immediately from the get-go. He is just head over heels for this woman, and he's soft and romantic. It's adorable. I also love that his charity is all about deinstitutionalizing toxic masculinity through traditionally masculine things, using rugby to teach teenage boys how to connect with their emotions and not fall prey to toxic masculinity. That's freaking cool. But I feel like I'm getting much more personality and much more character from Zaf than I am from Dani, and this is supposed to be Dani's story. I mean, it's both of their stories, obviously, because it's their romance, but fingers crossed, going forward, we get more actual personality and depth from our titular character. Okay, welcome back to another not scheduled check-in, because I'm not yet at 50%. I've actually read exactly one single chapter since I last checked in, and I already have something to say. So mad props to Talia Hibbert for giving me enough to talk about with these books that I'm actually over-delivering on my check-in promises. That being said, the thing that I have to say may or may not be like the hot take of the century, so please bear with me, please be kind. This book is making me uncomfy. I'm uncomfy. Why am I uncomfy? Well, Dani, this character, Dani Brown, is 100% participating in workplace sexual misconduct. There was just something about the way that she was talking to Zaf when she was like flirting with him post fake dating arrangement that just didn't sit right with me, and it took me a minute to figure it out. But the way that she talks to Zaf and about Zaf, specifically regards to his body, is exactly the same way that men have talked to me about my body and about other women's bodies for literally half of my life, and I'm uncomfortable about it. There's a difference between being sex positive and perpetuating the male gaze. There's a difference between being flirtatious and kind of just being creepy. And the fact that it's a woman doing it and not a man doesn't make it less problematic. She's still very much hypersexualizing him, and he doesn't seem to be bothered by it, but I am for sure bothered by it. And I firmly believe that if the genders were reversed, if it was a man, if it was a male character speaking to a woman that way, even if they are friendly in like a fake dating situation as these two, if it was a man, that kind of language would be very much not okay, and we would all be talking about it, and no one's talking about this. So that's my hot take. That's what I'm feeling right now. Am I gonna let that stop me from oh, excuse me. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm teensy bit under the weather. I'm not gonna let this discomfort stopping me from continuing to read the book, of course. Very much want to see where this goes. I know that there's a lot more to Dani's character than what I've seen so far, so I'm hoping that this is just like a part of that growth that we're gonna get with her. I'm just finding it very ironic that Zaf, his whole thing, his whole charity, is that he helps youths, adolescent boys, unlearn toxic masculine behaviors, but he's falling for a woman who perpetuates the male gaze. And I could go off about that and just like internalized misogyny and all of it, but we don't have time for that because this video is long enough as is. So anyway, yeah. That's my hot take. Gonna keep reading, gonna check in at 50. I'll see you later. Right, I don't know if I've just read way too much romance in the past month and thereby burned myself out on the genre entirely, or if I've just suddenly developed a much deeper understanding of the widespread hatred for the miscommunication trope. But either way, this book is frustrating me. You can't have a functional fake relationship and also have sex with each other. You just can't. Your wires are gonna get crossed inevitably. Also, the thing that I love so much about the fake relationship trope is that the characters, the couple, well, they have to like pretend to actually be in love with each other in public, they're allowed to hate each other in private. They're allowed to like really needle each other and get on each other's nerves, which ends up being super flirty, and then they actually fall in love for real. But it's because they are allowed to not care about each other in private, and that doesn't work when you're already friends and you already care about each other. Also, Dani and Zaf are both full-grown, emotionally intelligent adults who know the power of therapy and talking about your feelings and being honest with the people in your life. And they are not doing that with each other because conflict. It's bugging me, it's pissing me off. I understand that you don't want to get hurt / hurt your friend, but you gotta know that nothing about this is gonna work if you're not being 100% upfront and honest with yourself and with each other.
The next morning.
This book is making me emo and I need a nice coffee about it. Okay, so now that we're caffeinated,
Marginally.
what I said before about being uncomfortable with the hypersexualization of another person as an onlooker, as a bystander,
As a completely objective third-party outsider with absolutely no personal interest in the matter,
watching the scene unfold, I stand by it. I'm still uncomfortable with what went down and how it went down. However, I'm understanding now that that behavior on Dani's part is a manifestation of a much deeper psychological issue that she has, resulting from past traumas and being mistreated in previous relationships. And while I'm still uncomfortable with some of her behaviors from earlier in the book, A, she's stopped doing it, and B, I'm understanding where it came from, and I am able to sympathize with her. But that being said, I'm still struggling with this book, and I know that this is an unpopular opinion because literally everyone that I've spoken to and everyone that I've heard reviews from on these books have said that they enjoyed Dani Brown even more than Chloe Brown, and I'm just so slogging through it right now. And again, I don't know if it's something to do with the miscommunication and the book itself, or if I'm just burnt out on romance. So we're probably just gonna have to find out when I jump into Eve. As of right now, what's really killing me is the miscommunication or lack of communication between Zaf and Dani, and the fucking roll credits. Okay, it was cute in the prologue of Chloe Brown, when she pulled Chloe decided it was time to get a life. Pulled that in the prologue of Chloe Brown. She did it again in the prologue of Dani Brown, and it was cute and it was consistent. But the phrase "take a hint" appears on like every other page of this book, and it's driving me insane. So I really don't know what the problem is here, but I know that there is one. Now, are there some really good things about this book? Of course there are. Dani's character development. Here's the thing, I feel like I'm not seeing much growth from point A to point B, but I am learning a lot about Dani's character and why she is the way that she is. And it is really resonating with me. I mean, this book has made me cry multiple times because I'm relating very heavily to both Dani and Zaf for different areas of their life. It's been a very confusing experience, this book, I'm not gonna lie to you, because there are some things that make me think maybe I want to dock this in my final rating, but then there are other things that I'm like, no, this was really good and this deserves an extra star just for this one aspect. So I don't know what's gonna happen with this one. I will let you know in my final wrap up, because right now I'm actually almost done with Dani Brown. I know I said I was gonna check in 25%, 50%, 75%. We're actually past the 75% mark. What can I say? I'm back on my bullshit. I'm past the 75% mark. Things are looking really good for Dani and Zaf's relationship right now, which means we're gonna have a wrench thrown in. There's gonna be a probably unnecessary, really minor and quickly resolved conflict arising very soon. And then I'll be diving into Act Your Age Eve Brown, so I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of that before I dive in. So Eve is the youngest Brown sister. She's kind of flighty, very like, doesn't really commit to things fully. She's so helpful, like she tries so hard and she has the best intentions but not always the best execution. She strikes me as a Pisces type, or like
and maybe a Cancer, but I don't know, I feel like that flighty nature is more Pisces. She is faced with being kicked out of her parents' house, disinherited basically, because she's in her late 20s and just does not know how to take care of herself, and so her parents are trying to like force her out of the nest. She applies for a job to be a chef at a B&B and then promptly hits the owner of the B&B with her car and somehow still gets the job. So the whole premise of the book is this proprietor of this B&B, Jacob, he can no longer do certain tasks that he needs to do, and he also still needs a chef, so Dani takes the chef role, and she's also helping her on the B&B, and it's their romance, and there's a gingerbread festival involved. Sounds the most convoluted of all three of these books, to be perfectly honest, but Eve also seems to have the most eccentric personality of all three sisters, so maybe it'll work. I don't know. I will see you when I have started that one.
So good news, it was not romance burnout. I'm not burned out on the genre. I just was struggling with Dani Brown. That's it. There is no bad news. I'm about 25% into Act Your Age Eve Brown, and I want to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible because this is an advanced copy. The book is not out yet, so don't want to spoil too much. However, to add to the list of underrepresented groups that Talia Hibbert has kind of taken under her wing in these books, we're adding autism. I did not realize that Jacob, Eve's love interest, is autistic. And I'm starting to wonder if Eve might also be neurodivergent because she has certain behaviors and quirks, and even her mentality, one could associate it with neurodivergence, like autism, Asperger's, ADHD. It's been talked a little bit about in the previous two books that she always has an AirPod in. She's always listening to music. But being inside her head and seeing her internal monologue, specifically with regards to past friendships and past relationships, very much sounds like she's masking in a very active way, and so she doesn't necessarily pick up on things inherently. She's just learned the patterns to look for, and it's resulted in this like very bright, bubbly, colorful personality that's really inviting and just makes people feel welcome and wanted, whereas Jacob has gone the other direction, and so his personality is a bit more straight-laced by the book. He's a bit more rigid, and putting these two polar opposites together could have gone horribly wrong, but they're so respectful of each other's needs and boundaries. This is like a true opposites attract story, and it's really giving me butterflies in a way that the first two books in this series did not necessarily. They're already challenging each other in like the best kind of way. Let's see. The setting is giving me Stars Hollow vibes. It's this, you know, kind of small English countryside town village. There's a gingerbread festival, because of course there is. And if that doesn't give you Stars Hollow vibes, I don't know what will. There's also been quite a few pop culture references that I'm very much enjoying. I kind of had a moment when they talked about Stromae. That was fun for me. That's about 25%. I don't know that I'm gonna check in at 50. I probably will not come back until I'm at 75% because, again, I want to try to keep this spoiler-free, or as spoiler-free as possible. It's hard to do with a vlog, but I'm gonna get back into the reading of the book, and I will see you in a bit. So the descriptions of food in this book are by no means the most tantalizing I've ever read. They're not the most in-depth, the most like sensory descriptions of food I've ever read. That being said, I do want to eat everything that Eve is cooking. She mentioned making somebody a full English, and now I'm desperate for one. Also, there's this gingerbread festival, and we haven't even gotten to that point yet, but I can just see myself salivating over all of the food that will inevitably be described. So if Talia Hibbert ever wanted to bless us with an Eve Brown cookbook type situation, not that Talia Hibbert's gonna watch this video, but if she did, that would be my suggestion to her. I would be here for that. I'm gonna keep this quick. I'm at about almost 75% of the way through this book. I'm just about to start chapter 17. Things are really good right now. Not as good as they could be, but it feels like we are on track for a happy ending. Because I have read the first two books, I know that Talia Hibbert has
this sort of formula, somewhere between 75 and 85%. She puts in this internal conflict, and in the first two, it's like definitely stemming from abandonment issues. And she throws in this conflict that causes a breakup, and to me feels really unnecessary, and it's just perpetuated by a lack of communication, and then very quickly resolved when people decide they do want to communicate. So part of me is just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on this one, but there's a plot point that was brought up early in the novel, like pre-character arc, pre-character growth, that feels like kind of plot point that comes around at the end and bites you in the ass. Like this is going to be an external conflict that impacts the relationship between Eve and Jacob. As it stands right now, I don't know which of those two things is going to happen, but I'm hopeful. There's been some foreshadowing. It feels different this time. That's just my prediction. I don't want to spoil this book for anybody who hasn't read it yet, which I'm sure is a lot of you because, again, it's not yet released, so I will probably not be checking in again. Also because this video is so much longer than any video that I ever want to post. But I will see you at the wrap-up. Alright friends, good morning. It's time to wrap up this vlog. So to answer the overarching question of this video, are the Brown Sisters books worth the hype? If you hadn't guessed already by how much I raved about them in my check-ins, the answer is definitely yes. Shocking, I know. On the whole, I gave these an average of 4.3 stars out of 5, which is not quite as high as I had imagined going, but it's still a pretty damn high rating. I think anywhere from 4 to 5 stars is indicative that you should probably read this. On the whole, I found the plots to be engaging. The humor was so on point. The romances did not feel forced or rushed in any way. There was just a lot of compatibility and, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Chemistry. There was so much compatibility and chemistry between all three of these couples. Not to mention the absolutely sizzling steam that these books are just chock full of. Also, it is clear to me that all three Brown sisters have abandonment issues in some capacity, which is a pretty common emotional state for a lot of people. I think it's very relatable. What I found interesting about this, though, was that it's all three of them, and all three are impacted differently by these abandonment issues and the different events that have caused this emotional state for all of them. It affects their personalities differently, it manifests differently in each of them with regards to mental health. And from a character standpoint, I just thought that was brilliant and like a really interesting in-depth character study. From an individual standpoint, I gave Chloe Brown a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This book kicked off this whole experience with such a bang. It was really just such a fun read. I fully stand by my claim that Chloe is a Capricorn. The banter was there, the respect was there, the mutual care was so there. And really the only criticism that I have of this book is that the conflict at the end was a little bit unnecessary and a little bit too quickly resolved, in my opinion, to be as big a deal as it was made out to be, but that wasn't even enough to dock it a full star. We're off to a great start, and I know that this is an unpopular opinion. I'm aware of that. I know everybody and their mother gave Dani Brown a higher star rating than Chloe Brown. Everybody loved Chloe Brown, and then everybody loved Dani Brown even more, and I just did not. I was really conflicted about this one because on the one hand, again, the voice was there, the character was there, the relationship between Dani and Zaf was very strong and healthy, although to be fair, I feel like it was probably the least healthy out of the three. Not that that's saying much. It did have all of these great elements to it, and on top of that, the emotional response that I had to this book was a lot stronger than the other two. The issues that Dani and Zaf deal with in their own mental health and personal lives hit very close to home for me. Some of the conversations that they had with each other are like almost exact word for word conversations that I have had with my partner at like very low times, so it really did hit me very close to home. And generally speaking, when a book makes me cry with emotion as opposed to just like poor writing, when a book makes me cry, that's generally indicative of a 4 or 5 star read, so I did want to rate this higher based on all of the good things. However, the discomfort and frustration that I felt through most of the reading process just detracted so much from my ability to enjoy it that I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars, which is still not a bad rating. It's just a little bit lower. And lastly, it's the book you've all been waiting to hear about. The book we're all very excited for. Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I don't know if you can see it on my Kindle, so I'm gonna put it down and I will just insert a picture of the cover somewhere. My absolute favorite is Eve and Jacob. They have the banter, they have the mutual pining, they offer a challenge to one another, but like a really good challenge. This is a true opposites attract story, which is one of my favorite tropes that I had kind of pushed aside for a while, I feel like, in favor of more like hate to love tropes, which, to be fair, very often benefit from opposites attract, or like fake dating tropes. The opposites attract trope has been one of my favorites for my whole life, and I had largely ignored it for a while, and this book fully reignited my love for it. It took all the best bits of Dani Brown and Chloe Brown and just put them together into this colorful, musical, magical, sunshiny butterfly cupcake is how I feel about this book, and I don't think that there is another way to describe it, like legally. I don't think you can. So if you haven't pre-ordered Actor Age Eve Brown yet, feel free to take this video as a sign. Go do it. Go pre-order the book right now. Take the motherfucking hint. No. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. I didn't like that at all. And after I criticized the overuse of roll credits too, I'm a monster. I hate myself, and we're moving on. What worked so well with this opposites attract romance, and I know I said it before, but I'm gonna say it again because it's worth repeating, was the mutual respect for each other's needs and boundaries. Granted, that existed across all three of these books, but it was definitely played up in this one, and I do think it's because of the conversation around autism, which again, all three of these books had a conversation topic that they sort of touched upon that was like much bigger than the romance or even just the characterization, just like big societal issues. For example, ableism, or like in Chloe Brown, it was how women's health, and particularly the health of women of color, goes largely mistreated, misdiagnosed, which we all know women's pain is ignored, and so we're at a higher risk of medical malpractice, and for women of color it's just like so much exponentially worse. And in Eve Brown it was, you know, ableism and autism and ADHD diagnoses in women, which again plays into the women's health issue. I'm digressing, but yes, Eve and Jacob are definitely my favorites. I would love to know who your favorite pairing within the Brown Sisters universe is. Ooh, you know what? We'll do emojis. So if Red and Chloe are your favorites, leave me a cat emoji down in the comments. If it's Dani and Zaf, give me a thumbs up emoji. Smash that motherfucking like button. I apologize. If you're like me and Eve and Jacob are your favorite, give me a music note emoji. And if your favorite pairing is Gigi and Shivani, give me a yoga lady. I do love Gigi and Shivani. Thank you guys so much for watching, for sitting with me and letting me ramble on about these books at you for 40 minutes, what, at this point? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell so that you can get notified every time I post a new video. And of course, as always, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear your thoughts on these books, on romance in general. So leave me a comment down below or shoot me a message over on social media. All my links are in the description. Let me know who your favorite Brown Sisters pairing is. I love you guys so much, and until next time, peace out, Brussels sprouts.